Picture a 19-year-old standing in a driveway. They don't want a car, they don't want a lease, a loan, or a garage full of chrome. They want the thing motorcycles were always supposed to be: cheap, light, and a little bit dangerous. But a new gas bike runs them a small fortune, and the insurance quote alone reads like the sticker price on a used sedan. So they go looking for a backdoor, and they find one. A lightweight electric machine that does highway speeds, costs a few grand, and can roll out of the shop with no license, no registration, and no insurance in your name. A young rider on a Sur-Ron pulls away down a sunlit city street, and for one brief, glorious stretch, the freedom machine is back. And if you pull up city council dockets across America this exact week in July of 2026, you'll watch an invisible wall going up to brick that back door shut for good. This is the real story of the e-moto crackdown. Now, the easy version of this story is the one your local news is already running. Reckless kids, wheelies in traffic, a menace on two wheels that finally got what was coming. And look, that version isn't entirely wrong, but when you actually follow the paperwork, a very different story shows up underneath it. The last cheap on-ramp to two-wheeled freedom is getting quietly cemented over, one emergency ordinance at a time. So let's follow the paperwork, because that's where this gets wild. To understand why this loophole even existed, you have to understand the wall these kids were standing in front of in the first place. And the wall starts on a motorcycle dealership floor. In 2025, Americans bought 486,468 new motorcycles. That's a 7.6% drop from the year before, and this isn't a blip. The people who track this stuff call it structural, which is a polite way of saying the customer base is aging out and nobody young is showing up to replace them. The median motorcycle owner in this country is now north of 50 years old. Sit with that for a second. The machine that was supposed to be the cheap, rebellious taste of freedom for a broke 20-something has quietly become a comfortable weekend hobby for people with paid-off houses. And the industry priced it that way on purpose. Walk into a Harley-Davidson showroom, and the average model sails past $20,000. The whole company leans on a core buyer who's affluent and, by most industry estimates, over 45. Harley itself puts its average financed customer's age around 45, and some analysts argue cash buyers push the real number well into the late 50s. That's not an accident. That's a business decision. Chase the wallet that's already fat, and treat the broke beginner like a rounding error. But the insurance quote is where it gets genuinely brutal for the young rider. The sticker price is the cheap part. Picture that rider at a kitchen table surrounded by insurance paperwork and a calculator. Insurance companies price risk by age, and they have collectively decided that anyone young is a walking liability on two wheels. An 18-year-old pays around 41% more than a 35-year-old for the exact same coverage. Put that 18-year-old on a sport bike and it gets cartoonish. Sport bikes cost 2.5 to 3.5 times more to insure than a cruiser. In an expensive metro, a young rider on a fast bike can see $250 to $329 every single month. In California, an 18-year-old can get quoted over $2,000 a year. Now do the math the way a broke 19-year-old actually does it. The national average premium across all ages is $399 a year, but that young rider's insurance bill alone can approach the entire purchase price of the machine they actually want. Think about that. The insurance costs about as much as the bike, and that is before gear, before the training course, before you have bought a single drop of gas. For a generation already carrying record student debt and rents that eat half a paycheck, that is not a hurdle, it is a brick wall. So an entire generation did what every priced-out generation does. They went looking for the back door, and they found it in a machine that looks like a mountain bike and rides like a dirt bike. Rows of Sur-Ron and Talaria e-motos lined up outside a shop. The e-moto, names like Sur-Ron, Talaria, and e-Ride Pro. And to understand why these things exploded, you have to understand what they replaced. Half a century ago, the way a broke kid got on two wheels was a cheap, reliable, do-anything Japanese motorcycle you could fix in your own driveway with a screwdriver and a free Saturday. The e-moto is the modern version of that exact idea. Cheap, light, honest, and built for someone who just wants to move. Now, quick honesty check because the money nuance matters here. The Sur-Ron Light B is the one that actually lands near the FU Grand Fantasy. The bigger Ultra B has a manufacturer's price of $6,499, and by the time freight and taxes hit, it's closer to $8,000 out the door. But hold even that $8,000 machine up next to a $20,000 Harley with a 4-figure insurance bill bolted on top. Just sit with that contrast for a second. One of these is a 5-figure commitment that punishes you for being young. The other is a few grand, no premium, no plate, no paperwork in your name. If you're 19 and you just want to ride, the financial reality basically makes the decision for you. But here's the detail that turned a clever loophole into a national headache. These are not toys. The base Sur-Ron Ultra B makes 12.5 kilowatts of power. The 2026 HP version pushes 21 kilowatts in turbo mode and tops out around 59 to 60 miles per hour. It rides on full-size motorcycle brakes, motorcycle suspension, and motorcycle frame geometry. None of that mountain bike-derived stuff. This is a machine with the torque and speed of a 125cc dirt bike. And for a while, it lived in the fuzzy gray zone between e-bike and dirt bike, marketed and ridden like a bicycle before anyone in a city hall had written a single rule for it. That's the loophole in one sentence. A dirt bike wearing a bicycle's costume, in a moment when the law had not decided which one it actually was. So urban e-moto culture exploded, filling the exact gap the motorcycle industry spent 30 years digging. Give a broke generation an affordable, fast machine they can ride without a plate in their name, and they will buy it in droves. The desire to ride never died. It just went electric and slipped through a crack in the rulebook. But the rulebook always catches up. And to understand what triggered the crackdown, you have to look at the emergency rooms, because that's where the panic actually started. An emergency room entrance at a busy hospital, ambulance bay lights turning. Here's the number that lit the fuse. At Regions Hospital in Minnesota, a trauma center watched these injuries stack up fast. Pediatric e-bike injuries jumped from 2 in 2023 to 18 in 2025, while e-scooter injuries climbed from 20 to 35 over the same window. That's a combined jump from around 22 to over 50 in 2 years, part of a broader surge some reports describe as a 9-fold rise in e-bike-related emergency room visits. And Minnesota is not some outlier. Zoom out to the national picture and the numbers get genuinely sobering. And I want to be precise here because this is exactly the stat people love to twist. The Consumer Product Safety Commission tracks the whole micromobility category: e-scooters, hoverboards, self-balancing scooters, and e-bikes, all lumped together. Across that entire category, emergency room visits nearly quadrupled between 2017 and 2024. They went from 37,300 visits to 149,100. Fatalities over that same window climbed from 5 to 135. So no, that's not an e-moto only number. But e-motos are the fastest, heaviest thing in that basket, and they're pulling the curve up hard. Out in Wisconsin, UW Health reported a 483% spike in pediatric emergency room visits for these devices, comparing spring of 2025 to spring of 2026. In Rhode Island, Brown University Health logged a 170% increase since 2020. And here's the part that turned an injury trend into a full-blown moral panic. Who was getting hurt? In Orange County, California, the district attorney reported a 430% spike in electric motorcycle injuries over 4 years, and children aged 11 to 14 accounted for nearly 62% of those crashes. Sit with that for a second. The single biggest crash demographic on a machine that does 60 miles per hour is middle schoolers. And there's a study out of Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego that ties the speed directly to how bad the injuries get. In speed-related electric bike crashes, internal organ injuries showed up in 24.1% of cases. In non-speed crashes, that number was 10.4%. So when the bikes go faster, the injuries go deeper. The hospital data confirms it directly. But data alone doesn't start a nationwide crackdown. Tragedy does. A quiet suburban intersection at dusk. In Orange County, a 14-year-old on a Sur-Ron Ultra B struck and killed an 81-year-old man. The rider's mother is now facing charges. In Garden Grove, a 13-year-old died while riding an electric motorcycle. In Boise, Idaho, a juvenile rider was killed in a collision. And in Florida, St. Petersburg police reported 5 deadly electric bike crashes in the span of about 3 months. These are the stories that end up leading the evening news. And once footage of kids doing 45 miles per hour wheelies through a bike lane starts running on a loop, the political pressure becomes a tidal wave. Now here's the irony almost nobody is naming out loud, and honestly it's my favorite part of this whole mess. Cities across America spent millions building protected bike lanes, beautiful separated corridors meant for someone pedaling to work at 12 miles an hour. And then they looked up one day and realized they'd accidentally built high-speed corridors for unregistered motorcycles. The protected bike lane they were so proud of became the exact runway for the machine they now want to ban. You cannot script that. Even the neutral voices are admitting the system dropped the ball. CPSC launched a national campaign called E-Ride Ready, and their own framing says it plainly. Laws, infrastructure, and safety awareness, they say, haven't kept pace. That's a rare, honest admission. Bottom line, this machine arrived years before anyone wrote the rules for it, and now, all at once, everyone's writing those rules at the same time. Which brings us to what's actually happening in city halls this very week. Let's start in Boise, Idaho, because the timing is almost too perfect. On July 1st, 2026, right now, as this goes up, an emergency ordinance took effect. And read how they wrote the definition, because this is the whole game. An e-moto is now any 2- or 3-wheeled electric vehicle that exceeds 750 watts or is capable of going over 28 miles an hour. That's it. Cross that line, and legally, you're not on a bicycle anymore. You're on a motorcycle, and that means you must license it, register it, and insure it to be on a public road. Boise police have even pointed to a dead simple tell they can use on the street: no pedals. If a machine doesn't have pedals, they're not going to treat it like a bicycle. And here's the kicker. These machines are now banned outright from sidewalks, bike paths, and the Boise River Greenbelt. Officials pointed to a surge in injuries and safety complaints as the reason they moved fast. Meridian, right next door, announced they're enforcing the same way. Now Boise is not acting alone. Watch how coordinated this actually is. A police impound lot with rows of confiscated electric dirt bikes. Down in Henderson, Nevada, police ran a 4-day blitz from June 23rd to the 26th, 4 days. In that window, they made 101 traffic stops. They wrote 49 citations. They towed and impounded 39 e-motorcycles. And they cited 23 parents for letting minors ride these things. And this wasn't a one-off. Between December of 2025 and June of 2026, across 4 separate enforcement campaigns, Henderson wrote 122 citations and impounded 66 illegal e-devices. The traffic sergeant running it said the goal is keeping unauthorized electric motorcycles off the streets, the parks, and the trails. And the city says more blitzes are coming all summer long. So you've got Idaho passing law and Nevada running sweeps. And then you've got Florida, where the story takes a genuinely strange turn. Because Florida shows you what happens when the top refuses to act. On June 25, 2026, Governor Ron DeSantis vetoed Senate Bill 382. Now here's what makes this remarkable. That bill passed unanimously. It was bipartisan. It would have set a statewide framework, a 10-mile-per-hour speed cap near pedestrians, a crash data tracking system, and a safety task force. And DeSantis killed it. His stated reasoning? He called it government overreach and warned about enhanced surveillance from speed detection devices. And here's the line that gets more ironic by the day. DeSantis said the bill would lead to more surveillance of people by law enforcement, and that we don't need that. Sit with that for a second. The governor vetoes a statewide bill because he's worried about surveillance and over-policing. And the direct result of that veto is that policing e-bikes is now happening city by city in a chaotic patchwork with no statewide standard at all. His veto shattered the crackdown into 100 local pieces. Orange County, Florida is now drafting its own ordinance, with a hearing set for August 4th. Palm Beach already bans all motorized vehicles on the lake trail. And Coral Springs is pursuing its own rules, with the city citing 81 crashes involving electric mobility devices since September of 2025, a count that kept climbing through the city's own updates in 2026. And this is where the patchwork gets truly dangerous for riders, because every one of these towns is drawing its own line. Boise says 750 watts. Florida towns each pick their own thresholds. Massachusetts towns are doing it too. Westfield, Massachusetts passed an ordinance requiring compliance decals with fines that escalate from $50 to $300. Haverhill is proposing a driver's license requirement, a minimum age of 18, and impoundment for 30 to 90 days. Out in California, San Luis Obispo and Morro Bay launched enforcement campaigns in July. Wisconsin cities are stacking new rules by the month. Picture what this actually means for a rider. A map with a rider crossing a county line where tolerated flips to impounded. You buy your e-moto in a town that shrugs at it. You ride it across a county line. And the second you cross that invisible border, you're getting pulled over, cited, and towed. Same bike, same rider, same road. Just a different set of rules that changed under your wheels. That's the patchwork. A machine that's tolerated in one zip code and impounded in the next. And there's one more detail here that reveals the whole strategy, and it's honestly kind of poetic. The police are using the manufacturer's own marketing against the riders. Sur-Ron advertises its bikes as having the torque and power of an off-road motorcycle. And police are now pointing at that exact language as proof the vehicle is legally a motorcycle, not a bicycle. The company's sales pitch became the prosecution's evidence. You cannot make this stuff up. Quick one before we go further. If you're the kind of person who watches your local city council quietly slide these ordinances onto the docket and wonders what's really going on, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I dig into the real forces reshaping motorcycle culture every single week, all right? Because now we get to the part that turns a crackdown into something far more permanent. Everything I've described so far, the ordinances, the blitzes, the impounds, all of it rests on one simple demand. Register your e-moto, get a plate, get insurance, play by the rules like any other motorcycle. And honestly, that sounds completely reasonable. It sounds fair. Here's the problem. Depending on where you live, you might not actually be able to. Picture a rider standing at a DMV counter holding a folder of paperwork, getting turned away. This is the trap. And it's genuinely brutal once you see how it's built. The law now says your e-moto must be registered to be on the road, but when you take it in to actually register it, you can run straight into a wall you have zero power to fix. Let me walk you through it brick by brick. First brick. The DMV wants a 17-digit vehicle identification number to register and title a motor vehicle, a VIN. But a lot of these e-motos ship with a 10-digit bicycle serial number because legally they were built as bicycles. That serial number often doesn't fit the system. The clerk literally can't enter it. Second brick, say you're persistent. You track down a manufacturer's certificate of origin, the document that's supposed to prove where the vehicle came from. You can still get denied because the machine doesn't meet federal motor vehicle safety standards. It was never certified for highway use. It wasn't designed to be. Third brick. To make it legal from scratch, you'd need DOT-approved headlights, turn signals, brake lights, mirrors, and DOT tires. Then a state safety inspection. Then you'd have to apply for a state-assigned VIN, a process that's described state after state as costly, slow, and frequently rejected for vehicles that were never built for the highway. Now here's the important nuance, because I'm not going to sell you a fake absolute. In some states, there's a path on paper. Idaho's own Transportation Department, for example, lays out a process for Boise riders. Ownership documents, a VIN inspection, and a motorbike conversion affidavit, with a bonded title route if your paperwork is missing. So the door isn't always welded shut. It's more like a paperwork gauntlet, and a huge share of these imported off-road machines were simply never built to clear it. But in other states, the door really is welded shut. California says it flat out. An off-highway electric motorcycle cannot be modified to become street legal. Full stop. It's restricted to off-road areas or private property, and it requires a green sticker registration that explicitly is not a road plate. So look at the circle they've built, especially in a state like California. The law says register it or we impound it. The DMV says we can't register it because it has no VIN, no DOT parts, no federal certification. The manufacturer says we built it as an off-road bike, so it has none of those things. There's no exit. The rider is standing in the middle of that circle holding a machine that's simultaneously illegal to ride and, in the strictest states, basically impossible to make legal. And that's the real revelation here. In the toughest states, these bikes are effectively being legislated off public roads entirely. A normal regulation says here's how you comply. This one, in those places, says there is no way to comply. That's a wall with no door. And the financial consequences are severe. In Orange County, a 30-day impound can run up to $2,000. Tow fees plus $50 to $100 a day in storage. So the machine a kid bought for $8,000 to escape a four-figure insurance bill can rack up $2,000 in impound fees for the crime of existing on the wrong street. The trap takes your freedom and empties your wallet on the way out. Now, I want to be fair here because this is where the story gets more honest than the outrage version. The safety concern is real. I'm not going to sit here and pretend a 13-year-old doing 45 in a bike lane is fine. The injury data is genuine. The Rady Children's study on organ injuries is genuine. The families who lost people are not props in an argument. And I'll be straight with you, some of these bikes absolutely have the performance of a motorcycle and probably should be treated like one. That part of the argument is rock solid. So cities wanting safety, completely legitimate. It's the shape of the solution that's the problem, because there's a version of this where a city says this is a motorcycle, here's a clear, achievable path to register it, ride it safely, and stay legal. That version would be regulation. What's happening in the strictest places is different. Cities are demanding registration, while the registration pathway is either broken or non-existent. They're waving the safety banner while the practical result is confiscation and revenue. And a couple of things make you wonder whether safety is really the whole story. Look at the enforcement economics. A 4-day blitz that impounds 39 bikes with impound fees running up to $2,000 a pop. Grant-funded enforcement campaigns, escalating fines from $50 to $300, parents cited and charged. When the safety solution reliably generates towing revenue, storage fees, and citation income, you're allowed to ask whether control and cash are riding shotgun with safety. Now compare all of this to how it used to work, because the contrast is the whole point. A vintage 1970s dirt bike with a headlight parked in a sunny driveway. In the era when a broke kid could actually get on two wheels, the path was almost laughably simple. You could take a dirt bike, bolt on a headlight and a tail light, ride it down to the DMV, and walk out with a plate. The bureaucracy wanted you on the road. The whole system was built to say yes. Today, that same instinct, take an off-road machine and make it street legal, runs headlong into a wall of federal safety certification the machine was never designed to clear. The dream didn't change. The kid in the driveway wants the exact same thing they wanted 50 years ago: cheap, light, and free. What changed is that the door that used to be wide open is now, in a lot of places, a circle with no exit. And human ingenuity being what it is, riders have already started looking for cracks in this wall too. Some are registering their e-motos through out-of-state Montana LLCS to sidestep local restrictions. A clever secondary workaround, but that's already drawing scrutiny and you can see where it goes. Every workaround gets a counter workaround. The wall just keeps getting taller. And this isn't only an American story. Across the Atlantic, police in the United Kingdom have declared Sur-Rons flat out not road legal, and they're seizing them. Some forces have even used drone surveillance to track the bikes down. Drones. To catch electric dirt bikes. This has quietly become a coordinated global response to a machine that outran the rulebook. And that's what makes this feel less like a crackdown and more like an extinction event for a specific idea. The idea that a normal person without much money could just get on two wheels. So let's pull the whole thing together. An empty impound lot at dusk, long shadows across rows of seized bikes. Step all the way back and look at the shape of it. The motorcycle industry spent 3 decades quietly pricing an entire generation out of the saddle. They chased the 50-year-old with the fat wallet and treated the broke 19-year-old like an afterthought. And when you close the front door on a generation that badly wants in, they don't just disappear, they find the back door. The e-moto was that back door. A few $1,000s, no premium, no plate in your name. The closest thing to the cheap, honest freedom machine that vanished 50 years ago. And for a couple of years, it worked. But the rule book always catches up. And it's catching up right now this week in Boise and Henderson and 100 towns you'll never hear about on the national news. They're doing it through 1,000 quiet ordinances. A definition here, a blitz there, a DMV counter that says no, an impound lot that fills up one confiscated bike at a time. And here's the part that should genuinely worry anyone who loves motorcycles. This was the last cheap on-ramp. When the traditional industry priced kids out, the e-moto was the pressure valve. It was proof that the demand never died, that a whole generation was practically raising its hand, asking to ride at a price they could actually reach. And the system's answer, in too many places, is a wall. So go back to that 19-year-old in the driveway, the one who didn't want a lease or a loan, the one who just wanted the thing motorcycles were always supposed to be. Cheap, light, and a little bit dangerous. They found their machine. They found their freedom for one brief, glorious stretch. And now they get to watch it rolled onto a flatbed and hauled to an impound lot, over a registration they may never have been allowed to complete. The impound lots are filling up. And when they're full, the motorcycle industry will be left staring at the exact thing it created in the first place. An empty seat where the next generation of riders should have been. The freedom machine got parked because the rulebook finally figured out how to say no to all of them at once. So I want to hear from you on this one. If you're watching your own city council quietly slide one of these ordinances onto the docket, drop it in the comments. Are e-motos a genuine menace that need crushing, or are they the last bastion of cheap motorcycle freedom getting legislated out of existence while everyone looks the other way? I genuinely want to know where you land, and if you want the real stories behind the motorcycle industry, the ones that don't make the evening news, hit that subscribe button and stick around. I'll catch you in the next one.